Hey guys, welcome back to Between the Apexes. I'm here with Tim Mackie and Ryan Lindsey, and we're going to discuss our home GP here in Austin, Texas, and the upcoming race in Andalucía. Great race here in Austin. The sprint races weren't as exciting as maybe some of the other tracks, but it's always been kind of difficult to pass here in Austin. I thought Alex Rins did well, which is why I have on my LCR Honda shirt. And he was our race winner. No surprise there. Well, a little bit of surprise. I don't think anybody predicted Alex Rins to be the race winner. He was also second place in the sprints, which, I mean, this is his fourth time winning here at Austin. Thought he did a great job. What do you guys think?
I definitely thought so. I mean, I'm a fan of Rins. When he was on Suzuki, he made me want to have a Suzuki. He's got a lot of passion. He seems to get along really well with his teams, which is great. So it was awesome to see him win. I certainly didn't have him pegged to win by any chance, but seeing him win was awesome, especially because, Honda's got issues, and seeing a guy that's on a satellite Honda do well and win is just incredible.
Yeah, I'd round that out too, saying 5 years since that team's had a win with Cal Crutchlow. Mechanics getting their heads shaved by Alex Rins after the race. Just certainly big celebrations all around. And again, I remember talking about Rins might be the one to give Marquez trouble on that bike before the season started. And I think we mentioned last time that I think I would have picked Rins over Mir for my team. So yeah, super happy for Rins. Always liked watching him ride. He's just graceful and beautiful on the machine. But interesting to watch him manhandling that Honda a bit. Didn't look like the Rins on the Suzuki. But he seems like he's come to terms with it. Listening to him talking about making time in the S's, and he loves those big, epic, long tracks, right? And I think Tilke designed the track with the Silverstone S's in mind when he built these. I think they were kind of modeled after that. So funny that he does well beating Marquez at Silverstone and also performs well at Austin. But super happy for him. One of my favorite riders. Couldn't happen to a nicer team right now.
I wanted to say also, I watched an interview where he was talking, I think it was after the sprint,
and he was giving really good input into what he had to do differently on that Honda and how much extra energy he had to put into it to make it lean and turn. And I thought, man, that's all. And he was saying how when they give the throttle, they're having an issue with traction because it wants to pick up the front, and then the wheelie control kicks in and slows it back down. So he's like, I don't think our issue is we don't have the power. I think the issue is how we apply it. But hearing him talk about that, I thought that's great feedback. I mean, I don't hear anyone else describing the issues with the Honda in that detail.
No, and again, Rins is that kind of rider, right? In fact, touching on him trying Marquez's frame when Marquez was out for Argentina, he said to Honda, because each rider's got a different frame, by the way. Taka has a frame that's different from Marquez, which is different from Mir, which is different from him. And he said, why don't you let me try Mir's frame and Taka's frame as well, and I'll give you feedback on those. So very much want to be a team player and understand and advance the bike. And I heard Mark wasn't happy that he got to try his frame. So it's like,
I was going to mention that too, and I thought the same thing, but I'm still glad Rins did. That's what I like about him. He spoke up and said, let me try it too. And I think it's funny that Marquez was getting a little, hung up over that. But I saw on that documentary with when he was racing with, what's his name? I can't remember, but he would try and take the components that would go to his teammates and be the first one to get them, as opposed to trying to let everybody work with the same stuff. He wanted that advantage. And I hope that this year that Rins really gives him a run for the money. And again, he's not on the factory bike. So if he gives Marquez competition and he's not even on the factory bike, even better.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, he's gelling with the Honda to me a lot better than Mir has. He looked good in testing. That's why it gave me a bit of hope that he might be the one to come up and step up. Again, first non-Marquez winner on a Honda and oh so long as well. So
18 months, I think they said.
Going to be interesting to watch Rins the rest of this year. Definitely a quiet dark horse all of a sudden. And again, did it in the sprint too. One of the cool things I got to see in the paddock were the little sprint tanks. They had two of the MotoGP sprint tanks sitting out by the cleaning sink area. And I asked one of the mechanics, I said, those are small. Those are sprint tanks? He went, oh, yeah. It's amazing how different that bike is during the sprint, yet somewhat how similar as well at the same time. Somebody mentions the settings weren't that different, but again, you're going bonsai for that short distance on a small or different fuel load. It's got to be interesting adjusting to two bikes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what about Pecco? Do you think Pecco crashed because of the pressure, or do you think Pecco crashed because of the track conditions? Because everybody was crashing. Well, we have like 5 fallers, 6 fallers.
No, there was, I think, 9 crashes, but 8 DNFs because Binder got back on his bike. But technically, there were 9 crashes, if I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was certainly a crash fest. At one time, I joked next to the guy. I said, I think only 10 bikes are circulating right now on this racetrack, which is a bit of a yawn on a track that long when you're standing trackside. But yeah, it was interesting how that went, actually, with that bike at that moment. So
Yeah, I think it could be some of the pressure, because Rins was definitely pushing the pressure through that sector too, that he was comfortable with, and Pecco just wasn't there. I mean, he was just trying to, keep Rins behind him.
He said this morning, I don't understand what happened, and this is the best motorcycle I've ever ridden. I feel invincible on it. He just couldn't figure out the crash. And he said that's kind of happened a little bit now with this bike, that it's so smooth, he's not feeling the feedback when he's at that limit. He was completely miffed as to why he crashed. He was even mentioning, maybe we need to dial it back a bit, where I'm a tenth slower, but I have that warning a little bit. Interesting, his comments, and doesn't bode well when a rider can't figure out why he's going down.
Danny Pedrosa also made a similar comment about that. He just said that it's set up so precisely to be so fast that any little small error is magnified by it, and you pay the price when it's set up that way.
But to Ryan's point.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, to your point, Ryan, again, more crashes than I've seen usually. I think there was something odd with the traction here, or maybe just where the bikes have developed to at this point in time, but
well, that's what I was going to ask. Have you guys heard from any of the people that have crashed what they've said was the reason? Because with that many of them, you would think there's got to be a consistency somewhere. Either they all thought the track, or they all miscalculated what they thought the conditions were going to be, something. But if you have that many of them, and not where they were taking out other riders, almost all of those, aside from the one taking out Alex, were just that rider by themselves going out.
Yeah, I think some has to do with the aero. You've got a lot more pressure even when leaned over. These bikes are putting more load on that tire, and when it goes, it goes. To your question, Jack Miller did talk about it. He said, "Yeah, I felt it go. I stuck the elbow down, but nowadays," he said, the front tire's just already going around behind you, and there's nothing you can do." So again, I think it's indicative of where the bikes have developed to a little bit.
So not something specific to COTA, which is nice, but something we might see going forward in some other races.
I don't know. It's my perception, and again, just while we're thinking about it, that it's been a bit of a crash fest year thus far in total. I don't know what the averages are at the first couple rounds versus what they normally go down at those places.
I think adding the sprints, though, also added to that. Even though it didn't really play that big of an effect at COTA, it definitely in the first 2 races, I think there was, that had something to do with it.
Boy, we're in for a long season. These guys are going to be beat up by the end of this season.
Oh, it's so many races.
It's going to be nuts, right?
And I got to say again, as a spectator, I really am a fan of those sprint races. As a rider, I couldn't imagine. I went to the races last year, and we don't typically stay all day, but if you want to see on Saturday qualifying and the race, you're going to be there all day, because they've got to do a free practice, they've got to do qualifying, they've got to do the sprint race. That's so much in just one day.
I think that's part of the strategy to get you to pay for 2 days instead of people just going for
around.
1 day. Yeah.
That is obviously right. Part of it. I'm on board fully, Ryan. It's way better. I have the longer sessions now. Back in the day, I used to have these long 45-minute, hour-long MotoGP sessions. We're back to that. Makes Friday cooler too, because now Friday you got qualifying essentially at the end of each P1 and P2.
Yeah, so every day has some value to it now, which is awesome.
Yeah, I was loving that. And then having that sprint race. And I remember the race is always thrilling. I remember going back to the motorhome going, oh, man, I got the big one still to come. This is a way better Saturday than just watching qualifying.
Yeah, it's not even over yet.
Yeah.
And
so,
speaking of being a big fan, I'm a huge fan of Luca Marini, and I thought he did well. He kind of made a mill of the first turn in the sprint races, but looking at him in the main event, he did really well. But a lot of that has to do with the power of the Ducati. That pass he made on Fabio, it's just ridiculous. That was an insult to Yamaha. watching him come from 12 bike lengths back.
Yeah.
And just
Did you see the helicopter
walk
view of
him.
that? It was shocking.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a very iconic image or clip of video because you see both of them going full and you just see him passing like it's nothing and you think there's no way. If you've got a track with that long of a straightaway, there's no way.
Yeah, Yamaha looked like he was on a 600.
And he didn't even use a draft. He didn't even use the draft. They came out of turn 11 and were just free air, side by side, and he just rocketed by. Again, when you get that Duke into sixth gear, that's when you get full power. You don't get full power till the final 2 gears, I believe, in that bike.
Well, and I think that also points out how well Alex did at the same time because he was able to keep up. And even on the straights, he didn't look like he was still losing them, but he was not losing them nearly like Fabio was on that Yamaha.
Oh, yeah, Alex was managing the gap. They as soon as they told him Marini was behind him, he jumped up another half second, just put in a little bit more pace. Alex, he was a master. Master class in that race.
Yep, absolutely.
He did. He did. He said he was nervous and lost a bit of time the first lap because when he watched Bagnaia go down, I'm sure a lot goes through your head. And then he looked at the board and the gap and it had come down a bit. And then he said, that's when I said, okay, I got a good lead here. I just need to do my own thing and go. So
I was nervous all those final laps. I was like, oh, man, come on. So many guys have gone down. Just hold on. And I know there's no immediate pressure, so don't lose focus. Just make it.
Oh, no, I think he was solid. It was towards the end, the one to watch was Maverick Vinales. Boy, oh boy, was he the man on the mission at the end of that race. It was exciting watching him come through the field. Yeah, so I definitely need to talk about Aprilia at this track. Couple quick highlight thoughts. Aleix, track he doesn't do well at, had potential and lost opportunities in both, I'd say. And Maverick, what is it, man? Starts. You got to get that sorted out. They need to send him to a track with a V4 RSV4 street bike and a dozen clutches and say, go have at, figure that out, because he's got the pace. He's shooting himself in the foot. But the problem with Aleix was his rear right height device locked on and didn't come off. And he went into 11, and that was that. And same thing happened with the other Aprilia of Fernandez. So Aprilia's, again, it's kind of
they
those
both
niggles.
had the same problem.
Yeah, the same niggles that came in at the end of last year. They've got these little technical glitches that are just killing them. So if they can figure out how to launch a bike off the line, get their rear ride height device sorted out, I think they should be back in the hunt again and exciting to watch. But I hate to see it from the factory.
Aleix is pretty good on his starts, though, and Mav struggles, and I don't understand what and you have got to know better than me, but is it that he doesn't have the confidence in it? Because I thought that with all of the electronics they have, you're giving it all the power and then dumping the clutch and then letting everything else take over. Is it that he's hesitant?
You have a rev limiter and some electronics there, but from what I understand and what I watch trackside, is you still have to feed the clutch. And if you don't have good feel with that clutch, we've all ridden a bike that's strange to us, or you don't like where the lever engages, it engages late or early, or maybe it's really abrupt and there's snappy springs in that clutch. Who the hell knows? He can't figure it out. Aprilia certainly needs to figure it out, but yeah, they had pace. They were going well. Oliveira looked good.
Oliveira looked real
well.
good. I think Oliveira, we're going to see great things from him. I think at one point during the future, he's going to pass all the other Aprilia riders. I really do. I think he's a talented, smart young guy.
I think it'll come down to him and Mav. I hope he doesn't, for obvious reasons. I'm a big Mav fan, but yeah.
Well, he has the speed. My gosh, he climbed all the way up to 4th, right? So that's a heck of a run.
I was standing for the final race. I went up on the turn 19 hill, which is usually busy, and it wasn't. So I had a beautiful level place to stand there, big screen in front of me. And I forget who it was, one of the Premex, I think, at the end. He almost ran into the back of him with so much entry speed into 19 that he got sideways. Then the guy behind tried to take him off in 20, and he wasn't having anything of it. But it just seemed like, gap closed, pass made. Next lap, gap closed, pass made. A shame. Just if you could just get up there in the beginning.
When you watch that video to start.
It's hargy-bargy for all of them. These starts are just nuts. Even the long race looks like a sprint race start to me, with everyone just elbowing their way to they know how critical it is now to be at the front, and they're just Who was it? Binder said, got a great launch. No, Miller, I think. Got a great launch, decided to go to the outside. Bad decision. You know, he went to the outside at one, and all that advantage he got on his launch was gone in the hargy-bargy.
Yeah. Well, a battle to the first corner is always hectic.
Rough.
Yeah, for sure. But that was interesting too. I got to chat with some cool folks in the pits as well. Bumped into Lynn Jarvis, and he had a quiet moment there on Sunday morning. He seemed quite relaxed, so I threw some questions his way, and I said, "How was the test with Top Rack?" And he said, "You know, with the stiff frame, Top Rack couldn't get that feel that he wanted out of the front end." He said, "And the Michelin tires, you know, it's a big adjustment." I said, "Yeah, both of those things, Michelin's as well." He said, and I said, "Well, he'll go home and digest it." And Lynn said, "I told him to go home and think about it, not just for 48 hours, but take a couple of weeks and really think about, does he want another go at this? Does he want to step into MotoGP, or does he want to stay where he is in World Superbikes? And really think about it, not rush the decision." And I asked him, would you give him another test? And he seemed open to that. And then kind of asked the big Yamaha question. I said, well, with the regs changing in 2027, are you guys going V4? And he said, well, you know, I guess we have to wait to read those regulations, because if they stipulate 3 cylinders, then no, we won't, which was a very funny and coy answer from a guy. I think both he and I knew nobody's going to require 3 cylinders in MotoGP anytime soon. So, yeah, interesting talking with him down there. Fun day for sure. Seeing a few people in the pits. I always like, because I'm dead on 6 foot tall, I always like standing next to riders. You know, I don't need to get interviews or autographs and bug them too much, but I always like comparing how tall they are to me and their physical stature and whatnot. And there's a fleet of guys my height out there. Marini, Alex Marquez is a tall one. I was surprised when I see Zarco. He's a little taller than you think.
Really?
And yeah, and then when I saw Maverick, I'm like, he's not as small as I thought he was. Maverick's a pretty good size.
Okay. I heard Top Rack was only 0.7 seconds behind Cal Crutchlow. It's not horrible.
No, but further off the fast guys.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Folger was out there. He was, 4 seconds behind everybody else. But I guess they just didn't have any other choice to replace Pole, huh?
Oh, I'd have traded places with him. Can you imagine having Circuit of the Americas to yourself with that crowd on that bike any day of the week, right?
Well, Jarvis does not seem excited about Top Rack. He seems like he's open to it, but from what you're saying and from what the reporters were saying there at the track, he just seems like and I don't know if he's playing hardball with Top Rack, where he's like, you know, we could take you, but don't just think because you're doing so good over here that we're going to take you. You have to get to a certain level for us to even consider you. But he seems real tough.
But what's he going to do with Frankie? You know, I mean, Frankie's still well ahead of Top Rack as a known quantity. I mean, they can't just boot Frankie for somebody who's 0.7 seconds behind Cal.
Yeah, a lot's going to depend on what he does this year. A lot's going to depend on what Morbidelli does again. He's had some sparks lately, for sure.
Yep, and he still put his whatever. He was positive about Morbidelli and was saying that's where we're going to put our focus. So it sounds like they're giving him, and from the beginning, they've been behind that guy, pushing him even when he wasn't doing good. They're like, nope, we still believe in him. We still believe in him.
I think it's funny how he said he consulted Valentino himself. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious. I think the thing is, what I felt from listening to Lynn was that he got the feeling from Top Rack that Top Rack was a little befuddled with it and was not he said, what did Lynn say? He wasn't doing any stoppies or something to that effect. So
it might be. It's hard to go from a race winner in WSBK to back of the pack at MotoGP. Is that something you want to do?
It might be a little more humbling than he was anticipating, where he thought he was up here, then got on that GP bike and was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big step to make for sure. And again, you want to get in a little bit younger than him if you're going to bounce around the teams and try to show your worth once you're here. We see so many guys come in, don't get a good ride. Look at Remy Gardner, son of a world champion, Moto 2 champ, 1 year in and out, over to World Supers you go. So he's got a big decision to make, Top Rack does.
Yeah. What do you guys see for Andalucía? Who do you think's who's gonna come out on top out there?
I think you're going to see Pecco bounce back.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to ask them to make his bike 1/10 slower so he can at least feel what's going on, I guess. But yeah, you can't knock him out. He won it last year. The many DNFs he's racking up in a row right now, he's got to be bringing one home. And
it's a little deja vu.
Speaking of which, what did we talk about last time with Martin? Jeez, he's just got to bring that bike home. He's got to stop the crashes. So
I saw a reporter in the press conference after the sprint race asking him if he had a chip on his shoulder, and you can tell he has a chip on his shoulder. And the way that he's handling it does not seem to be something that's making him better. It seems to be something that's actually holding him back, because he had a little bit of arrogance after the sprint race where he was thinking, and he even said, "Oh, I was smarter than Aleix" at one point, and I thought, oh, he's getting a little bit cocky, and then right out of the gate eats it.
He was made for the sprint races.
I think some of that's lost in translation because they're using English, to be quite frank. When he said I was more clever, they don't really have the words to form the nuance in it. So sometimes it can sound a bit more braggadocious or bold than it is. But yeah, when you look at his demeanor in interviews, and he didn't speak kindly about being passed over last year. He made it clear he was sour about it. And he does seem to be a guy that's got always that little bit of a chip on his shoulder, to which I say, stop crashing. That's all I got to say to that guy. Yep. You've got everything going on, bro. Just stop crashing.
Yeah, you got speed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Pecco's crashing too now, so I like Jorge. I think he's made for the sprints. I think he has a little bit trouble conserving the tires like some of the other riders do. But yeah, he totally believes that he belongs on that factory seat.
Yeah, he does.
But we'll see. I mean, Enea's been out this season. So when Enea comes back, maybe he'll put him in his place and put some more humility into the guy.
Oh, hopefully, I haven't heard. Are we getting him back for next race?
We are. He'll be there for Andalucía. And in fact, he was going to be one of my picks for the podium. I'm going to say.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to say Pecco, Eneas, and Luca Marini. 3 Ducatis.
Nice, bold.
You go ahead, Tim. I'm still not sure.
Oh, man, I'm not. Well, let's see. I mean, Fabio did well there last year. Fabio did well this weekend again.
Yes,
but
that's awesome.
And it's a tight track where some of that acceleration's nullified a bit. So just for fun, I'm going to have him in third place. I guess you got to go with Bagnaia. There's just no way he can fall off again. So I'm going to go with Bagnaia for the win. He just can't, slow down, dude. Have fun, have battle with him. But, again, you got to finish before you can. What do they say? First, you must finish before you can finish first, or whatever. So I'm going to go with Aleix, actually.
Oh, man.
As much as I love Maverick and want him to do well at this track, I think he's still got some clutch stuff to sort out. So I'm going to go with Bagnaia for the win, Aleix for second, and no full Ducatis. We'll go with Fabio getting up on that podium.
Well, I'm with you on Pecco. I think he's going to come back and do really good. And Pecco either is up at the top or he's out. It's one of the two. And I think he'll bounce back pretty good. I do hope Fabio does good, so I'm going to go with you on that one too. And for a third, I'm going to say Marquez. I think Marquez is going to get up there.
Is he going to do his double long lap penalty?
Who knows? I was waiting for somebody to mention him. Now that bone is still going to be a little fragile, so going to be interesting to see his comeback for sure. And for that reason, I'm not going to put him on that podium. But it's Mark.
For that reason,
who knows?
Yeah, well, he posted where he showed a picture and he's wearing some leg things for circulation, I guess, but he didn't comment, as far as I know, on his brother getting taken out or on Rins coming in first. And so I thought either the guy is going inside of himself or he's getting that battle mentality. So I don't know what to expect from that guy going forward, but I do think that he's probably going to get a little bit more wild. So let's say that this is kind of him wrapping down. It's probably going to get more wild before he's out.
I can't imagine him getting more wild. It's going to be a bloodbath.
But you got another guy on a satellite Honda that just won at the track that he's known for winning
on his bike.
Right. So I feel like he's that whatever that turmoil that is inside of Marquez is going to be full flame right now.
Well, Marquez was, I think, he was about 12 seconds off the podium last year at Jerez, with Miller nipping on his heels. We should have mentioned Miller. I think he's going to show well in this race too. But
I hope so.
yeah, it's Jerez, right? This is the place he got hurt. He needs to be very careful and just finish a race without so much contact. It was interesting to see the other riders going, don't worry, it's just Marquez, we'll be all right kind of thing. And they were all describing, just anticipate that he's riding over his head on a bike that doesn't cut it. So
Yeah, and that everybody was safe at COTA because Marquez wasn't there, and everybody took themselves out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Fabio's also out riding his bike, and I didn't see him crashing into anybody. But, you know.
they were all out riding him. Rins said he was on the literal edge hanging on to Bagnaia to keep that pressure on him.
I bet.
Literally pushing the wheels off that Honda. And again, making the time in the S's specifically. So, yeah, they all are right now. And it seems like maybe it's something to do with the aero, but those elbow saves, those knee saves, they seem to be fewer and far between. Those bikes snap away now when the front end goes.
They do. All right, guys. Well, I think that draws a conclusion to our episode this week. Thank you guys for coming on and giving us your opinions and your thoughts and your experiences.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Dr. Speed.
Thank
Have a
you.
great week.
Tim. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Stay tuned.